Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Knitting in Holland podcast. If you've already been here, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. My name is Camilla. I'm Italian, but I live in the Netherlands with my partner and kitty that you're probably gonna see roaming around in the next half an hour or so. But today, I just really wanna welcome all of you because it's the first episode of 2023, so a new year has begun and you haven't seen me for quite some time, and I apologize for that because I really wanted to keep up posting a podcast at least once every 2 weeks, but the last month of the old year and the first one of the new one have been pretty intense. First, in December, my parents have been to the Netherlands to visit, and that meant that we really had to set up a bit better the new apartment. And in January I had a very tight deadline, and so I actually went back to Italy with my parents and spent there almost a month, because when I'm there, it's really more of a deep focus retreat. My mom still cooks for me and does everything for me, so I can only focus on my work, and that was really what I needed at the moment. And that meant that I couldn't really record a podcast episode or edit it, and I also didn't really knit that much during the month, so I didn't really even have that much to tell you about. Actually, I did leave almost all my projects in the Netherlands when I went back to Italy, because I didn't want to even have the temptation to spend my time knitting instead of working, and that actually did work a bit. I have to say that also giving up social media for almost a month also helped, because I completely deleted Instagram from my phone, and that helped so much with the temptation of knitting, because seeing other people knitting beautiful things didn't really tempt me to also myself start knitting and spend all my time knitting. So, but when I came back, it really made up for all the time lost, as in the first week I casted off like 3 projects straight away. But I don't want to spoil anything, because I will show you everything during this episode. So today I just want to catch up, show you what I casted off, what I casted on, what new yarn I bought, what I swatched for the next projects. So it's gonna be, a bit of a lot of yarns and projects showing, which is probably the most typical format of a podcast. But as you know, it hasn't always been like that for my podcast. I usually like to talk a lot about yarn and knitting in general, also, let's say, from a theoretical point of view, but today is really gonna be mostly practical. So you can then tell me in your comments if you like this, let's say, slimmer podcast than the long version with a lot of general facts, or if maybe all the theory about knitting and sustainability, maybe you would prefer it instead in like a separate videos than the podcast. So 2023 is gonna be a year of experimentation and trying out new things, and I definitely want to keep up recording and posting here on YouTube. So if you keep coming back, you're more than welcome. So let's start. What are we starting with? Let's start with what I'm wearing, because one of the first projects I finished in 2023 was indeed my Aosta sweater by the Knitboard Girl, and I'm so happy about it, because so as you know, I had already shown this to you when I started knitting it, I think back in November. It was going super fast. I thought it would have worked out perfectly, and I would have finished it by the end of November. That did not happen because then I got really into knitting Christmas presents, and so my time just wasn't really enough to knit this by the end of November. But also then I did not bring it with me when I went back to Italy, so I only got to pretty much pick up the project back in only in January, but really in a matter of like a week I finished it, because this sweater, one, it just knits up really quickly because it's 8mm needle and with thick wool, but also it's so fun to knit. It looks really cool, but it's really just a easy repetition of knits and purls, and it just really worked out really fine. And so I was really happy to bind it off, and I blocked it last week, and I am so happy about it. Also, I honestly love this combination of colors. As you can see, let me see if I can show it a bit more. So as you can see, I did all the hems and the cuffs, and the color I did them in white, contrasting with the pink of the rest of the sweater. The pink yarn is the Petite Wool by We Are Knitters in spotted pink, while the color is knitted in Snowstorm by Hobbii in the color ivory. And honestly, I dig this combination so much because it has that vibe of 80s après-ski. I love the contrast of the color and the cuffs. This contrast was inspired by Hive Knit's version, where she knitted hers in cream color with neon yellow color cuffs and hem, and I love the version, but at the same time I had fallen in love with this pink color. So I made this combination, and honestly I'm so happy, and it worked out so great. So let me talk a bit about this pattern. So this is the Aosta Sweater by the Knitboard Girl, and it's definitely her bestseller. All her patterns are great, but this one was actually one of the first ones she made, and it just really blew up. This one that I knitted is actually the old version. As you may know, a couple of months ago, she reformatted and edited her original pattern. So that now when you buy the pattern, you not only find the version like the one I did with a simple raglan and without any short rows, but you can also find the version, the new version that has a compound raglan, and it also has a short rows to shape the neckline a bit better. So when you buy the pattern, don't be afraid, because it's still extremely beginner friendly, because indeed you can choose whether to do the short rows or not. But the compound raglan that she did put in the new version, I can see why she did it, because so this sweater, it has a simple raglan. That means that literally it's like just a straight line, and you can see when I close my arms that it doesn't really follow my bust very neatly. There's a bit of more like emptiness here. So the compound raglan usually is not a straight line anymore, and it really does improve the fitting of a raglan sweater. I still, anyway, despite me knitting this when her new version had already come out, I still knitted this one in this way, because honestly I had actually, and if you remember, knitted the collar 1 year ago, and then I kind of had hibernated my whip, took it out again this year, and I just really wanted to go ahead with the idea of the project I had 1 year ago. I have all the intentions of knitting a new one following the new version, because I do really appreciate the difference, the improvement that both short rows and compound raglan give to a sweater. If you're not a lover, especially of short rows, because I know there's a lot of people out there that kind of hate them, I just really wanna appeal to you to actually try and fall in love with them. German short rows, once you understand how they actually are knitted, are not that difficult, but the difference they make in a sweater is amazing. So if until now you've been kind of skipping on all the patterns that had German short rows, please don't. Try embracing them, because you'll be really happy with the outcome. This said, this one doesn't have any. This is a great sweater also to knit if you're really at the beginning of your knitting journey. So yeah, I'm really in love with it. I've been wearing it already a lot. Also, it's nice to finally get out of my stash all that yarn because, as I said, I started knitting this last year, so I had quite some balls of the Petite Wool and Snowstorm in my stash, and now they're finally gone. So I'm more room in my stash because those skeins were really taking out a lot of room. But also, this is not the only project I bundled off at the beginning of the new year, because I finally finished also my Sophie Shawl. So this is the Sophie Shawl, which still has a bit of lines from the blocking. You can see the lines from my drying rack on it apparently. But anyway, actually I don't know why it still has lines, because I do have been wearing it for quite a bit these past days. I love it. I love the fact that it has the thin tails, so it's just so easy to just knot them, and then if you want you can also hide them, and it's never gonna move. I hate when I'm wearing scarves and then I'm just like losing them all around. Like any movement I make, the scarf just slips off my shoulder and then falls to the ground, or like falls behind my back and I have to like contour myself to actually get it back. I hope I'm not the only one with this problem. This design really, it's just practical. Also, yeah, I didn't jump on the bandwagon with this project because literally I was seeing everybody making it. And did I need a new scarf? Yes and no. Like, there's never too many scarves, but at the same time I had already my couple of scarves that were like in rotation for this winter. So at first I didn't really think about knitting it, and then I actually saw that I had a couple of balls of yarn which had been in my stash for almost 2 years, and they are actually not the best quality of yarn, because it's I think the pure wool by Action. So I bought them at Action during the lockdown, so it's been a while, and I was pretty much at the beginning of my intense knitting journey, and I wasn't really able to kind of calculate exactly how many balls I would have needed, especially for a freestyle project. I just wanted to make myself a flowy scarf for winter, and I think I bought something like 8 balls of yarn. The fact that each of these balls is like €2 didn't really help for like 100 grams, but so I had like I don't know why, but I ended up with like 800 grams of yarn, of wool, to make one scarf. Of course, I made the scarf, I had so many skeins left, and this means that now I'm just looking all the time for tiny new projects to finish off this yarn. I do prefer it for accessories, because this is your itchy wool. Like anytime you see, sorry, there's a bit of fluffs of wool going around. Anytime you think of wool as an itchy fiber, this is the type of wool that's an itchy fiber. So I would never use it for a sweater. Also, the amount I've left right now is probably not enough for a sweater. But anyway, this is only gonna go into accessories. So yeah, this is definitely a project that I recommend if you want to knit something, if you want to knit a scarf that's really practical, and especially if you have a couple of balls of yarn lying around. I believe it will be also, it could be a great project to do with scrap yarn. So either with tiny pieces of yarn and make it like a very colorful version, or also in color bands. If you have only like one skein per color, I think it would really turn out great. It is incredibly, I think, beginner friendly because it's only a garter stitch, and if you don't know what I'm talking about because you've never seen a Sophie Shawl before, but let me describe it for you a bit. So it's all in garter stitch, and it has the edges in I-cord, but actually it is extremely easy to leave an I-cord edge. So it's maybe what could look a bit more like the most experienced detail of this design, but it's actually not difficult at all. And then of course there are increases and decreases. Don't worry about it, it's not a difficult project at all, but the combination of the increases and decreases gives it let's say a triangular shape. And you will start with very little stitches, because I think you only cast on like 6, and then by adding and going ahead it just grows by itself until you get to half, where you start the decreases, and you do pretty much the same until the end. So it has this fun shape. I did, however, make the biggest size. The pattern comes with 3 sizes. I really wanted I really like long scarves, so I wanted the size that would have allowed me to make most turn around my head. It is perfect for winter. So mine really looks a bit more rustic than other versions I've seen online, simply because, again, I used the scarf I had in my stash, which is a bit more rustic, a bit more itchy, let's say, and it's pure wool from Action. So it's not probably the best sustainable option, but in case you just don't want to spend that much, I did this with 2 skeins of wool, of that wool. Because it's 1 skein is 100 grams, and so I think that with about €5 of that wool you can knit up this scarf in the biggest size. I really like the outcome of this scarf. There's been a time where I hated knitting this, because at the beginning it's super fun. I especially love to literally see it growing, but also I was really curious to see how the I-cord hedge would have turned out. And because it really, when you read on the pattern, it really sounds like so damn easy, and then the outcome is really cool, it's really great. But when you're actually going on and it grows at the end, there's quite some stitches, and it's all just garter stitch. Sure, it's fun, it's like the best project to do while you're watching a movie or while you're in the car, but after a while it's just a bit too much. I really just needed to alternate it with a more difficult project, and this slowed down the process a bit. But now that it's done, I'm very happy with it. I'm very happy with the user making of it. I just don't know if I would knit another one. I've seen people knit like 4 or 5 of them for like the whole their family, especially as Christmas present, and I don't know, I'm just surprised because mine took forever to finish. Like, I mean, kudos to the people that actually did knit more than one, because I couldn't. But yeah, let me know if you've knitted too, maybe, probably. I don't know, I've seen literally anybody knitting it. But if you haven't done it yet, it interests you, I don't think you need to buy a new yarn. If you have a DK weight of yarn, I think you need 4 skeins of 50 grams for the biggest size, or 2 skeins of 100 grams. But really, if also you have just 1 skein per color, I think it would really look great also in big bands of color. So this was the second project. The third project I casted off already in 2023 is the There Mohair Beanie, which I'm just gonna wear, with which I've had quite some issues. So this is a pattern by Kutova Kika, and it's from her book Knit This. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest that you watch my latest podcast episode, because I really went in detail over all the book and all the patterns that she has in the book and which ones I wanted to knit, and this one was one of them. But I had very many problems with this hat. This is, besides the sweater I've test knitted for that book, this is the first project I'm actually knitting from the book after I bought the book. And it's fun because it's knitted with 3 strands of mohair. I usually am not that huge of a fan of mohair, but honestly I loved the fabric that 3 strands of mohair made. I don't know if you can see in the camera, but I've been using 3 different shades of blue for the 3 strands. And this is what makes this project really cool, because it's perfect for those 3 odd balls of mohair that you have lying around, because we always buy 1 extra for a sweater quantity. It's perfect for this hat. And I did have these 3 colors of mohair that, as you can see, I still have a lot, like I could make another one, because I had bought these from a Dutch indie dyer, Kleur en Draad, but actually it was her business closure sale. So even if I wanted to buy more, to get more of these colors, right now I couldn't. But this means that I had these 3 colors which are really nice, but of course they're not enough for a sweater. These, by the way, were 50 grams skeins and hanks originally, and that's why I still have a lot. But I had problems with the pattern. I had problems right from the beginning, because I casted this on, I think, 3 times simply by following the pattern. I just couldn't understand how it would have ever gone through my head. So it is a double folded rim. The rim is made in half fisherman rib, and then you continue in stockinette for the body of the head. So at the beginning, the pattern called for the long tail cast on of 60 stitches, which is incredibly small. And I was like, okay. But then already in the first row, you make quite some increases, which, if I remember correctly, you immediately double the number of stitches. So you go from 60 to 120. But at the same time, you still have this cast on that it's a long tail cast on, which is not elastic at all, still of 60. So even if then when you fold it, that cast on is gonna be almost, let's say, at the top of your forehead, it's still way small, and you don't want a head that's gonna be like extremely tight right on top of your head. So what I did was, the first time I did it, then I frogged it, and I tried again, this time casting on with, I think, a larger needle. That didn't help, so I ended up casting on with a large needle, but doing, instead of the long tail cast on, doing the most elastic cast on I knew, which is the twisted German cast-on, which is what I usually use for the rims of socks. It was a bit more elastic. And I went on like that and I finished it. And then now that it's finished, I have to say also, when I tried it on as soon as I finished it, and it would fit over my head, but like really, really tightly. So when I blocked it, I stretched it out as much as I could. And now that it's stretched and everything, I casted it on with using a different cast on, and I used a bigger needle. Other solutions so I looked up when I was a bit like freaking out about it. I mean, I had already unraveled quite a bit of half fisherman rib, which is more like half brioche because it's made with the yarn over. I had already unraveled it twice. I was starting to freak out. I really kind of wanted to make this head, but it wasn't working out for me, and I just couldn't understand because like it's coming for a book, it needs to be right, which is not true. But so I actually looked up online for the hashtag There Mohair Beanie, and I found actually somebody that was knitting it. There was also somebody that I already followed on Instagram, so I knew how she knits. And I just texted and sent her a message like, I'm sorry, but how the heck are you doing it? Because I'm really struggling here, and I have no clue if it's me, if I'm misunderstanding something. And instead, apparently, she had the exact same problem. She had also unraveled a couple of times, and at the end, what she did was casting on instead of the 60 that the pattern is calling for, but casting on already the larger number that you would have after the first round of increases. And that finally, thanks to that, she had finally managed to get it past her head. I don't think I have a big head. My head is usually in the range of normality, so I don't know. I'm still gonna use it. I still like it. It is a bit out of my, let's say, range of colors at the moment, because as you will also see later, what I'm pretty much casting on lately is just pink and burned red and beige, and this is a bit outside. Also, my recently thrifted winter coat, it's red, so this wouldn't match it either, and my normal like winter coat is like soft pink. This is not gonna match any of what I wear during the winter. I hope that by wearing it and, you know, maybe blocking it out a couple of more times, it's gonna get a bit larger. And I'm just thinking, if this pattern had gone through testing, I would imagine somebody raising this issue, because I don't think I'm the only one that's had this problem. And I was a bit disappointed because it was the first project I was knitting out of the book. Hopefully it'll be better with the next ones. But yeah, so this was my third project finished in 2023. Now I have a couple of projects to show you from 2022. I don't know why I did not go on chronologically. Sorry about that. As you know, one of my last podcast episode of 2022 was dedicated to my Christmas knit list. If you want an update on those projects, it didn't go too well. The only one I finished in time for Christmas was the Olafur socks for my dad. They were great. He loved them, and that was everything. I didn't finish any other Christmas present. The one I'm really right now hibernating is my boyfriend's Knives Out sweater, because it just needs a lot of focus, and I just haven't got that much focus to dedicate to it for a while. So it's a bit still at the same stage you've last seen it in. I just made peace with the fact that he won't wear it this winter. Probably, maybe the next one. I just intend to like take it up now and then to add a bit of rose. It is a very slow project. But I think I missed Kane's 5 out of 30 for that one. So I've knitted 1/6 of it and it's okay. The last Christmas present I wanted to knit was the Patronus Mittens for my mom. And as you remember, with some modifications, because of course the Patronus Mittens were Harry Potter themed and I didn't care for the Harry Potter theme for my mom. This was actually the only project I brought with me to Italy, and I did work on it a bit. You can see this is the back and it's coming out super nice. I also already put the thumb placement. It's really cute, it's really pretty. And this is the front where you can see the deer slowly showing up. And also this is really, I love this. Actually, this is a good thing. This is the only one I've knitted so far. It's not like there's a second mitten already finished. This is it. But this is actually nice that I didn't finish in time for Christmas, because I did tell my mom I was knitting her these. And honestly, she was like, yeah, but I don't really like mittens. And it's totally fine. That's true. I've never seen my mom wearing mittens, but I just thought maybe because she didn't have them. So what we actually ended up deciding is that they're not gonna turn into mittens, but I'm gonna stop before the decreases for the fingers, and so they're gonna become more like gloves, like fingerless gloves, because then she would use them plenty also in the office during work. When it's still a bit cold, they will be great also to work at the computer. So we decided that it's gonna work like that. So I'm gonna make, after making a bit of a modification in the design of the collar work, I'm also gonna make a bit of a modification to the pattern itself. But I hope they'll turn out great, because honestly I love how the color work is turning out. I haven't really worked on these most recently because simply knowing that I won't see my mom for like the next 2 months, I wasn't really like pushed into finishing it soon. But now the time I'm seeing her is coming closer, so I should get on knitting these. So that was the update for Christmas. But in December I did finish something else. I knitted myself a pair of penny gloves. They are again knitted with the pure wool from Action, a different color, but it's still the same kind of wool as the Sophie Shawl. Again, this is something I was seeing a lot on Instagram, simply because they are an easy and quick Christmas gift that a lot of people knitted for friends and family. And when seeing them, I suddenly realized, you know what, my hands are always cold when working from home. I think when I knitted these, we were still trying to see how long we could have gone without turning on the heating. By the way, we ended up turning it on December 3rd. It will be a tough record to beat next year. So it was cold in here. We were wearing very many layers on just to stay warm. And I mean, when working on the computer, wearing these, it was great. So I quickly knitted them. Also the fact that again I had this yarn in my stash I wouldn't use for anything else really helped. This is a project that I would knit more, but maybe if one day I'll have a more of a need for it, because after we turned out the eating, I didn't wear them anymore. The only thing is that I will probably do a different bind off, because they're a bit tight at the top rim in a way that they like they kind of like slip ahead where my hand is thinner instead of staying a bit down there, but here they kind of constrict my hand a bit too much, which if I'm just working at the computer is fine. If I'm doing something else, it's a bit too tight. Also, the wrist, next time I'm knitting them, I'm gonna literally knit half of it. It's just too long. Like as you were seeing even now, like for me to have this fit on something, I would have to literally put it and pull it under the sweater, and it's just not practical for me. So next time I would definitely knit only half of the initial wrist rows. This was a fun project. It was also the first pair of gloves mittens that I did, so it was really nice also to knit the thumb area. Also, I improved a bit in picking up the stitches for the thumb in the second one compared to the first one, because the first one I messed up a teeny bit. I don't know if you can see, because I really didn't want to have those tiny holes to the sides that you also get like when you pick up stitches from the sleeves. So I did pick up an extra stitch, but it still like didn't really end up being really nice, while the second one worked way better. Fun side project. But of course, while knitting these, I stole time to my Christmas knitting. Anyway, another thing that I did was participating to a test knit during Christmas time. It was a sock test knit, because these are the Santorini Socks by Brillino. And you remember I had a bunch of Novita 7 Brothers Nature, which I had originally bought for the Patronus Mittens for my mom. But then I figured that these are the nature version of their 7 Brothers yarn, so it doesn't contain any nylon, and the wool, I believe, is not superwash. This yarn should be washed by hand. While knowing my mom that if I knitted something just hand washable, she would have probably ended up not wearing the piece, because she doesn't have the time or the headspace to actually wash by hand. Instead, I ended up buying some drops Karisma for mittens, and this gorgeous yarn by Novita, because I don't know if you can see it, but this is like so shiny, it's beautiful. I had it all for me then. Originally I thought of knitting a pair of Patronus mittens for me too, but then I saw this test knit for Brillino for Santorini Socks, and it just was perfect. And honestly, I'm so happy because I love how these socks have turned out with that yarn. It's extremely soft yarn. It's really warm. I love having a pair of thick socks like this. But right now I only have one sock like this, because of course the test knit already required to finish one sock, and it was right over the holiday season, and I just needed one, because then I had to knit all the Christmas presents and I didn't have time for the second one. So now I still have to cast on a second one. So I didn't really get to enjoy these socks yet, which is a pity because my feet are always cold. So I should definitely cast on a new one soon. It's a bit of like the second sock curse, right? But yeah, they're really, really cute. So this was also made in 2022. And I think, yeah, I've shown you all my finished projects that you hadn't seen yet. So let's talk about whips. So after taking quite a break from test knitting, I did sign up for the Santorini Socks test knit in December. And since then, I kind of fell in love with the experience again. So right now, I'm actually part of two test knits, and they're both by HirisMakes. And one of them is Bedruthan Camisole. I could be saying it completely wrong, I hope not. It's a very summery top, which I have started. I already knitted the back. I am knitting the front right now, and as you can see, the front has this amazing detail of a stepped increase, and it makes it really fun neckline. I really like this. I'm almost done with the front, and then I'll finally be able to join back and front, join them in the round. This looks super small. It really, I don't know if you can tell, it looks really small, but because it's a 2x2 rib, and so it will definitely grow a lot when blocking it and when stretched out over the body. This has been really fun. I just really wanted to knit a summer camisole. Also like the fact that this will be ready when summer starts, because usually I start knitting camisoles during the summer, so they're always a bit of a slower process because they're smaller needles, thinner yarn. A lot of them are like in ribbing, which is also slower. So at the end I end up finishing camisoles when it's like end of September and it's not possible to wear them anymore. My boyfriend always asked me why I knit winter stuff during the winter and summer stuff during the summer instead of doing the opposite. So when it's winter, I would have already a bunch of winter things ready to be worn, and same thing for the summer. And honestly, the only reason I can think of for it, well, I mean, sure, I like the feeling of it being winter and me knitting up with like thick, nice wool, instead of like with cotton or linen. But I think we're simply very influenced by Instagram. Like, it would be very weird to post pictures of camis during winter, but also it's a cycle of the indie designers. Like, all the winter patterns, of course, are put out during winter and not during summer. But I mean, his reasoning is flawless. Like, why don't we do the opposite? So when summer begins, we actually have something to wear and to show off. But yeah, I don't know. But this case, thanks to this test knit, I will be able to have a nice finished camisole ready to be worn during summer. This is knitted on 3mm needles, so teeny tiny needles, and it's knitted with Knitting for Olive pure silk, which I got in this gorgeous copper color. This yarn, it depends on the light. Like in this light, probably in the camera, it looks very coppery. But then when I look at it, it actually looks to me a bit more brown, which is a bit of a color I don't really like browns that much. So it's a bit of a color out of my comfort zone. Although with my skin and my hair color, it will look great. So I'm actually excited to have something a different color for this summer. And this was my very first time I tried Knitting for Olive pure silk. I had been wanting to try this for quite some time. If you've seen my last episode, you probably remember how I was talking all about yarn origin and how a lot of, let's say, Instagram famous yarn brands are often promoted as very sustainable choices, but then when it comes to the origin of their yarn still comes from the other side of the globe, so it has traveled thousands of kilometers, and that has a big impact on environmental footprint of that yarn. And one of the brands that I was talking about was definitely Knitting for Olive. I see their merino and their cotton merino everywhere, as if like they were the only ones that actually produced them. I do agree that probably they're amazing yarn, they're soft, they're great to work with, but it's still, stand in my position, I do believe that there are more sustainable options, especially because it's a very pricey yarn. Sustainable options that are honestly even cheaper. But among all the different types of yarn they produce, the pure silk is probably the one I would choose as a sustainable option over other brands. This one, it's really interesting because they do ensure that the silk they're using is produced by using silk cocoons of silk left by the silkworms only after the chrysalidase has already broken and the moth has already left the cocoon behind. So the industrial production of silk, however, what they do is they don't wait for the silkworm to transform fully into a moth and go on with its life. They as soon as the cocoon is made, they just grab it and use it for the production of silk. However, for the production of the pure silk yarn by Knitting for Olive, it is ensured that the moth has already left the cocoon when it's turned into thread, silk thread. And I think, you know, if we're talking about sustainability also as animal welfare, I don't see why we should care for goats and sheep and not for moths. So it is a more sustainable choice than other sustainable yarns. So for this specific types of yarns, congratulations to Knitting for Olive for making a sustainable choice. So the second test knit I'm doing for HirisMakes, it's actually for a more fall wintry design, which is why also this test knit is gonna finish already midsummer, because it's for a design she intends to release next fall, and it is a beautiful v-neck cable vest. And so far I've only swatched for it, but it's gonna be amazing. I love these cables already. They're really cool. And the yarn I'm using, actually I was so happy because again I fished for yarn in my stash. It's gonna be soft tweed, which is a mixture of 50% wool, 25% alpaca, and 25% viscose. And this I bought some months ago, I think during like the big alpaca sale by Drops. I wanted to make a sweater for myself in this, I think this is sand color, and it's a very subtle tweed, and it works out perfectly for this cable sweater. I'm so happy about it. This yarn, it's a bit, so it's a DK yarn, but well, maybe more of a sport actually than a DK, but it feels a bit rustic, but then actually when it blocks, it blooms out and it actually becomes quite soft. I'm really liking the fabric it made with this swatch, and I really can't wait to cast this on, but I will only cast it on probably either when I'm finished with the camisole, or at least when the camisole is joined around. From there it's just gonna be 2x2 rib on and on and on, so I'll be able to cast on a bit more of a not difficult project. So while swatching for the test knits, I also swatched for a couple of other projects that I really wanted to knit for the end of this winter and the beginning of spring. So the first project I swatched for is the Easy Wrapped cardigan by Easiest Knit. It's a beautiful wrapped cardigan, which I think it would be great also for the beginning of spring. And I already had the yarn for it and I swatched it. It's actually 3 different threads of yarn, and I love the fabric it has made. I don't know if you can see, but there's also some sparkle in there. So I used 3 different threads. The first 2 are these huge balls of yarn. So I have no idea what this yarn is called and what brand it is from, but last year during a yarn fair here in the Netherlands, I bought these huge balls of yarn and they're just called so these two are just called Big Ball and they are 45% wool, 35% alpaca, and 20% acrylic. So there's a bit more acrylic than I like. These ones are called Super Kid Mohair, and they're 45% kid mohair, 40% wool, and 15% nylon. So again, a bit different than the usual yarn I use. But I remember when I bought these, I got these because they were 3 balls for 15 euros. And this one is 200 grams, so 360 meters, while the mohair one is 150 grams, so 750 meters. So I have 2 balls of this, 1 ball of this, should be enough to make the easy wrapped cardigan, and I'm knitting them together with Lana Grossa Brillino, which is this sparkly yarn by Lana Grossa, and combining the 3 of them I obtained this gorgeous fabric. I really like the idea of getting something a bit sparkly. I had originally thought of knitting this for Christmas, and then I thought of knitting this for New Year's Eve, and then I didn't. So maybe finally it will be fine for like the transition into spring to have it. So yeah, I made a swatch. I should just like cast it on one of these days. But as you saw, I also have different colors of these huge balls, because I have this one in, let's say, more the wool kind of yarn, and this one in let's say the mohair. Again, I have 2 of these, 1 of this, and these should become a Salerno cardigan by the Knit Poor Girl. I did swatch for them. This is the outcome of the swatch, but to be honest, I'm not very happy with it. I don't know, the fabric doesn't look dense enough for me, but also I think there's a bit too much of difference in color between the more red-ish and the more pinkish yarn and the softer pink one. So I fished in my stash and I think I may have found a solution. I may add a 3rd thread, which in this case would be drops brushed alpaca silk in coral, and drops brushed alpaca silk is 77% alpaca and 23% silk, and the 3 fibers together I think I like. I hope you can see them on camera, but I think I really like them because this is a more like a bit more of an orange undertone than the rest, and so it would be a nice contrast. And I really think I'm gonna knit it up with the 3 threads together. So yeah, like 3 different shades of pink. I think it will turn out nice. Also, the Salerno cardigan is a bit more of a traditional cardigan by the Knit Poor Girl. And again, I don't really use cardigans during winter. Actually, during winter, I kind of hate them because I always feel like they leave some room around my neck that I really want to have covered and for it to be warm. But I make quite a bit of use out of them during spring because I love layers during spring, and cardigans are just an easy layer to add and to take off. So yeah, I'm excited to cast on these 2 cardigans, and let me quickly check all the stuff I have on the table in front of me and next to me. But I do think that I have showed you all my whips for the moment, and all my plans, so what I have swatched for. Yeah, I think you're all caught up now. Yeah, it's been a while, so there was a lot to tell you. Also, I I wanted originally to make everything I knit in 2022 kind of video. It became a bit too late because of course I came back to the Netherlands only end of January, and still I was a bit too busy to record anything. Then I thought about making my plans for 2023 kind of video, and then actually I realized that it wasn't really doable because these days I keep changing my knitting plans. Mostly because I do want to knit more out of my stash, but at the same time I'm going over the techniques where I still feel a bit wobbly, techniques that I want to learn better. So among the projects that I have ready to be knitted out of my stash, I'm trying to choose the ones that are gonna teach me more about certain techniques. And this kind of changes every week, so I couldn't really make a video about my plans for 2023 when my plans are changing every 2 days. So I'm just gonna keep you updated about all my progresses. I hope to keep you updated a bit more often, and I hope you enjoyed this video. It was really nice to talk with you again. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. If you can't wait for another one, please hit subscribe so you'll know when a new one comes out. And I really hope to see you again. So have a great day and see you soon.